On April 3, 1968, a man stood before a crowd in Memphis, Tennessee, and calmly described his own death. Not as fear, not as prophecy, but as acceptance. Martin Luther King Jr. was not supposed to die the next day. But he knew something most people didn't, and history would ignore his warning until it was too late. By 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was exhausted. He had marched, he had been beaten, he had been jailed, he had been threatened more times than anyone could count. But what many people don't realize is this: King was becoming more dangerous to the system, not less. He wasn't just talking about civil rights anymore. He was talking about poverty, about economic injustice, about war. And that made powerful enemies deeply uncomfortable. In 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. made a decision that changed everything. He publicly opposed the Vietnam War. He called America the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. Those words shocked the nation. Civil rights leaders turned against him. Newspapers condemned him. The White House cut ties. King was no longer just a civil rights leader. He was now a threat to American foreign policy. What King didn't say publicly, but knew privately, was this: the FBI was watching him closely. Under orders from J. Edgar Hoover, King was wiretapped. His phones were monitored. His hotel rooms were bugged. The goal wasn't protection. It was destruction. They wanted to discredit him, break him, silence him. In March 1968, King traveled to Memphis to support striking sanitation workers. The march turned violent. Windows shattered. Police cracked skulls. The media blamed King. Privately, his friends begged him not to return. Publicly, King refused to back down. Because to him, injustice anywhere was still injustice everywhere. April 3, 1968. A storm rolled over Memphis. King didn't want to speak that night. He was tired. He wasn't feeling well. But the crowd waited. And when he finally took the stage, something changed. Near the end of his speech, King paused. Then he said words that would freeze history forever. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. But I'm not concerned about that now. He spoke about threats, about danger, about seeing the promised land. And then he said this: I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. The crowd applauded, but they didn't realize they were listening to a farewell. The next day, Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. At 6:01 p.m., a single gunshot rang out. King collapsed. Within an hour, he was dead. America burned that night. James Earl Ray was arrested. But questions never stopped. How did a lone man escape so easily? Why was King under surveillance but unprotected? Why were files sealed for decades? Some questions remain unanswered to this day. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't predict his death by magic. He understood power. He understood history. And he understood the cost of speaking truth. They ignored his warning, but they couldn't erase his voice. Because some men don't die when they're killed. They live on. As a warning, was Martin Luther King an intelligent king? Comment below and subscribe to History Without Borders for more stories history tried to forget.